He couldn't believe how quickly it was happening. They hadn't even FaceTimed yet, but she was already calling him baby, telling him she hadn't felt this way in years, and that he was different, safe, the kind of man that she'd been waiting for, but thought maybe they didn't even exist anymore. She messaged him every morning, checked on him in the afternoon, and she said goodnight with hearts and little pet names. She was sweet, affectionate, and really vulnerable enough to feel real. And he wanted to believe, because who doesn't want to be chosen? Who doesn't want to be seen? But the truth is, real relationships don't start like that. Not in the wild, not in real life. That kind of fast forward romance, it only happens online. And when it does, it's almost always a setup. Today's episode is a dramatic little walk through the world of online dating horror stories, and more importantly, how not to become the main character. Because dating in the digital age, it's a lot like ordering sushi from a gas station. Yeah, sometimes you get what you asked for, and sometimes you get a life lesson the hard way. Dark stomach pain. If that sounds even a little bit familiar or a little too intriguing to look away, I hope you'll stick around, because that's what's on the agenda. Leslie met him on a Tuesday afternoon after 2.5 days of swiping left on a bunch of guys holding fish. He didn't look like a model. Well, not exactly. He was older, distinguished, mature, and there was just something about his face. His eyes, they were kind, and he had a good smile. And the messages, they came quickly. Not too fast, but consistently. And he said all the right things. Told her that she had an interesting mind. Asked about her sister's surgery. Remembered what kind of coffee she liked. And he never rushed her off the app. He made her feel like they really had something. A rhythm, a story in progress. They talked every day for hours. But he always had a reason that he couldn't meet. Work, family, timing. The camera on his phone was broken. He wasn't great with video calls, but he sent voice notes and memes and playlists. And after 5 weeks of messaging, it felt like they were already dating. So when he told her something had come up, just a small emergency, and he asked if she could help until Friday, she didn't hesitate. It wasn't much. It was just $100, but it was a crack in the surface. Because once that line is crossed, once money enters the chat, it never really leaves. The asks got bigger, the excuses got thinner, and the intimacy, it kept going. Because that's how it works. They make you feel like you're already in love. So by the time the scam hits, you're already defending it. By the time she finally stopped replying, he'd taken her for almost $3,000 and nearly 5 months, I think, of her life. And the worst part, she still missed him. I just wish that she'd known me then, because if she had, then she would have followed the one rule I've been teaching for well over a decade. Meet them within a week or delete them. Marty isn't flashy. He doesn't lead with confidence. He's just a regular guy running a small business, wearing the same baseball cap in 3 different profile photos. So when she matched with him, full lips, glowing skin, a profile that looked like a sunscreen ad, he figured it had to be a mistake or a bot. But she messaged him first. She said he seemed so real and that she was tired of shallow guys and looking for a man with some depth. He was flattered, a little suspicious, but also intrigued. They started talking nonstop. She was calling him baby by day 2 and saying that she hadn't felt this way in years. She sent him selfies, and she even said she wanted to delete the apps and just focus on him. Then she emailed him, and she said that her phone had been stolen. That she has a little bit of savings, but not enough to cover a replacement. She was about $400 short, and she didn't want to lose what they'd started. She said it felt too important, too rare. Could he help? Next came the big gesture. She said she wanted to visit. Oh, he wanted that. She even sent him a screenshot of the flight after she'd booked it and told him that she couldn't wait to finally be held by someone who actually cared. But then her brother got into a motorcycle accident. The money she'd set aside for the trip, gone. She messaged him a voice message, crying, and she said she felt awful, but maybe could he help just this once? He did, and that's when it started. A missed rent payment, a lost ID, custom fees. Each one was small, very urgent, and always just a little bit more, until eventually Marty's daughter stepped in, and she said, "Dad, this is a scam." But he didn't want to hear it. He just got defensive, and he said, "You don't understand." He said that she was trying to ruin the one good thing that had happened to him in years. And in his mind, she just didn't get what it was like to be this alone. Because that's what these scammers do. They don't just take your money. They isolate you slowly until the people who care about you start to feel like the enemy. By the time he finally cut her off, she'd taken him for over $40,000. And the worst part, yeah, he still missed her. Of course he did. He still caught himself checking his phone, unable to grasp the concept that he hadn't been talking to a lovely woman, but probably some dude in a call center somewhere in India. Because what she gave him, attention, affection, warmth, it felt like love. Until it didn't, and it wasn't. If he'd followed the rule, he would have known what to do a whole lot sooner. And it's the same one I'll tell you here. Meet her within the week or delete her. Carol, she's a retired teacher with 2 kids, 3 grandkids, and a rescue terrier who bosses her around like he pays rent. I can relate. She knows how to use her iPad, but she still doesn't trust Apple Pay. She makes her own soup stock, alphabetizes her spices. She's not naive. She's just a little lonely, and she's a romantic. She still believes in soulmates, and that maybe, just maybe, there's somebody out there who's still looking for her too. So when Thomas messaged her, she wasn't expecting anything, but he was smart, thoughtful, a little flirty, but also respectful. He said he was working overseas on a consulting project, and it made dating a little tricky, but something about her profile really stood out to him. She liked that. He didn't push, didn't try to move her off the app too quickly. He asked her about her grandkids, her garden, her favorite books. He told her that she had a really calming energy, like someone who made people feel at home. He told her he hadn't looked forward to talking to someone like this in a really long time. And honestly, she felt the same way. So when he brought up the opportunity, she listened. He said he'd been investing in something new, crypto-based. It was still early on, but already it was growing fast, and he told her that he'd been making money and he wanted her to be part of it. He said it felt good to build something with someone who actually saw a future with him. She didn't really understand crypto, but she trusted him. And when he told her that all she had to do was open a digital wallet and transfer a small amount of money to get started, and he'd walk her through every step, she said, okay. She downloaded the app. She created the wallet. But then she had to connect it to her bank account and start moving some money around. And there were all these unfamiliar terms and phrases she didn't recognize, platforms she didn't know. And it didn't feel romantic anymore. It felt like work. And she just didn't like handing over money to something she couldn't explain. So she paused. And that pause, that saved her. Carol didn't lose thousands, but she almost did. And not because she figured it all out, really. Because it got hard. Because something felt off. And she listened to that little voice in her gut that said, this doesn't feel right. People who get scammed aren't dumb. They're just romantic. And they still believe in love and soulmates. And I'll tell you what, I don't want them to stop believing, but I do want them to have a rule: meet them within the week or delete them. Deborah didn't tell anyone at first, and honestly, who would have believed her? A public figure, someone she'd crushed on for years, sent her a message. He said he was tired of being seen, that the spotlight felt fake, that he was looking for something real and someone normal, someone like her. And she wanted to believe it because his messages weren't sleazy. They were calm and thoughtful, like a guy who was done with games and he just wanted to be known. He told her she had kind eyes and that her energy felt grounded, safe. He couldn't use his public account, too many people watching, but he trusted her, and he said that this felt different. He sent her voice notes and mentioned old interviews, and he shared obscure facts only a real fan would know. It felt personal and intimate, like maybe she'd been chosen. And then came the ask. He said his assets were unavailable. He was going through some legal stuff, but he just needed a little help. A few $100s, just temporary. He promised that he'd give it back to her as soon as he cleared this thing up. He just didn't want to lose what they had together. And she almost sent it because it felt real. It felt like a secret, and it felt kind of like a fairy tale, but it wasn't. The photos were stolen. The voice notes, AI. And the story, he was telling it to hundreds of women all around the world, each one convinced that she was the only one who knew. So unless Jason Momoa is FaceTiming you from his kitchen, calling you by name, and going through your lasagna recipe step by step, you're not dating a celebrity. You're being played by somebody who knows exactly what to say. Oh, and here's another one. It's short, but kind of unforgettable. It started like a lot of these stories do, playful and flirty, nothing crazy. And then it got a little steamy, and she sent a photo. Not nude, but revealing. Something she wouldn't want her kids, or anyone else, honestly, to see. And then the moment she hit send, everything changed. He said if she didn't send money, he'd send the photos to her kids. He showed her their social media profiles, one of their schools and work. She panicked, and she paid. Because that's what sextortion does. It backs you into a corner. It makes you feel ashamed and trapped, alone. But if this ever happens to you, I need you to hear this. You are not stupid. You're not alone. You're just being blackmailed. And your silence is not your friend. There are ways to report it. There are people who can help. But pretending it didn't happen, that's exactly what they want you to do. Each of these stories, every dollar that was lost, and my gosh, the numbers across the nation, they all could have been prevented. Not by being smarter, not by trusting less, but by following one simple rule. Meet them within the week or delete them. If you're talking to somebody online and they always have a reason they can't meet you in person, they don't get to keep access to your heart or your wallet or any of your time. You can't build a relationship with a profile and a promise. You need a person with a voice and a presence and a real willingness to show up in person. Most people don't realize that they're being scammed until it's too late, until a friend speaks up or their kids beg them to listen. And even then it's hard, because when your heart is open, your guard is down. And the scammers are counting on that. So let this episode be a reminder, a little reality check, a little tough love with your coffee, because if you're putting yourself out there, you deserve something real. I hope you found this interesting or helpful. If you did, you might want to check out this episode. It's really about the personality and qualities someone has if they are more easily scammed than most other people. And don't forget to subscribe, because otherwise I'll just keep talking to myself, and Mom says that's how it starts. Appreciate you being here today, and until next time, have a good one.